Hi everybody, and happy Tuesday, and welcome to Live Weather Impact. I'm meteorologist Brittany Van Voorhees here at WCNC Charlotte. Hopefully you were able to get outside today at some point. It was a little bit on the rainy side. We did actually see that little trough that's still lingering near the mountains impact our overall forecast today, allowing for some of that light rain we had linger later than expected, but at least it was cooler. In fact, a little bit weird about today is that we essentially are some of the coolest we've been, or the warmest we've been, that is, right now. Temperatures are actually at 71 right now. You can see this view here from our WCNC Charlotte Tower Cam. This morning, literally at midnight, we were 69. So actually we got the climate data that came out from the National Weather Service, and officially they think that our high was 69. That will get updated tonight, but I've seen this number as high as 72. So a little bit interesting there, because the actual forecast I had for today was 73. So I still don't think we quite got there, but we definitely got closer once the sunshine finally broke through the clouds. 55 the current dew point, so starting to see some lesser humidity. I always make the joke that I always know when the humidity is starting to drop, because it's easier to style my hair. I've naturally curly hair. I feel like I talk about this all the time. To then my wonderful chief meteorologist Brad Panovich will joke, me too. Well, in this case, I think I'm the only standard that we're watching over the next few days. But humidity going down. We're already feeling more comfortable outside, 55. A very stark contrast from what we had last week and the week before, where we had all of that humidity and all that tropical moisture. There were some days where I saw the dew point close to 80, which is more typical of like a tropical system being nearby. So just like interesting little factoid there. Let's look at surface map. What's happening right now outside. There's that cold front we were tracking yesterday, and then here's that little trough there I just mentioned. It's this little black little dotted line here, little trough of low pressure that sometimes can develop on the backside of these cold fronts. That's what we were expecting to bring the earlier rain. It just has stuck around and looks like it's not budging anytime soon. So with that being said, we still have this light area of rain tracking up in the mountains. But what's interesting here is that if you back up, I'm going to go to now, and let's back up over the last hour. A lot of these storms were a lot stronger and a little bit more held together when they were over the Virginia border. But now as they're getting closer to the mountains, I'm going to put us into motion here. Let's go back. You notice that things are really starting to weaken here. We notice we went from storms to just areas of light rain in those areas up in the mountains. Look at that. Enters Caldwell County and goes from heavy rain to just some light showers. So with that being said, I do expect, because of some of this dry air, that a lot of this will start to weaken as it continues to move southward. And just based on current trajectory, at a maximum, we'd probably see maybe some of that action along and west of I-77, but for the most part, areas closer to the city and east will be nice and dry. So you'll see this here in our Futurecast kind of reflected. Futurecast is kind of aggressive here because it's showing some of that heavy rain holding together. Again, I don't necessarily think that will happen. I think we're mostly west of I-77, clearing out pretty quickly overnight, and then a gorgeous start to Wednesday. Wednesday certainly going to be the pick of the week for a landslide here, at least if you're Brittany Van Voorhees, because I think that dry air, 80 degrees is a fantastic way to start June. If you're looking for more heat and humidity, don't worry. We'll have some returning this weekend. So temperatures overnight, very rare 52 degree low. That's 10 degrees below average. The mountains are in the 40s. And again, it's not just the fact that we're cooler. This isn't one of those cool but muggy mornings. No, it's cool and beautifully dry. Few clouds mixing in. Tomorrow afternoon, if you have any outdoor plans and you're off on a Wednesday, or maybe you're like me and you're working the late shift, we do have gorgeous weather as well. Near 70 for lunchtime, near 80 for the afternoon, again near 70 in the evening hours. What I do think we'll start to talk a lot more about over the next few weeks and months is, of course, the UV index. It's getting higher with the higher sun angle closer to the summertime, or the peak summertime months, that is June and July. So your burn time is going to be more aggressive. If you're going outside and you're thinking about the UV index, wearing sunscreen, just think about the shades, sunscreen. There's a third S, but now I can't think about what it is. Shades, sunscreen, sunglasses, and just make sure you're staying nice and safe. 80 degrees again for tomorrow afternoon. Once we have that cooler and drier air mixing in tonight, it's not just this morning or tomorrow morning's low, but also tomorrow afternoon's high. That is really nice. We'll rebound to near average by Thursday, and then look at Friday. Yes, heat and humidity will eventually return, and so we're getting two afternoons, that is, of near 90 degrees. Now, that is not near record values, but we are above average. So 90 is certainly not the record once we get into June and July. Here's that long-range forecast again. Pretty nice weather for tomorrow, 52 for a low, 80 degrees for a high. Still very comfortable for Thursday morning, but a little bit warmer in the afternoon. And then again, you can see temperatures rebounding pretty much every single day, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, eventually getting back to that hotter condition. Now, I did want to go over some of these numbers here really quick, just because I had a lot of people asking about this. I did update our drought numbers during the newscast here. We did get a really good amount of rain. We know in the month of May, in fact, most areas were 2.51. Let's see if I can find this graphic. Beep, beep, beep. Of course, I updated it. Now the text is so small and I can't see anything. All right, I'll show this one first. This isn't the one that I meant to show, but I'll show that one later. So May was the first month that we've had essentially since August of 2025 that we actually had above average rainfall. Whoop. And so that put, yes, James, yes, whoop, whoop, whoop. So that put us finally in a surplus for the first time, in about 9 months or so. Now, technically, we're still in a surplus so far for June. I mean, we're only 2 days in, so probably not a surprise there. Here's the graphic I was looking for. There you go. So 2.51 inches above average for May. So far, so good for June. We'll talk more about the drought conditions as we look ahead to Tim Buckley, and we'll have some information on hurricane season. Lots of good stuff to come. Don't go anywhere.
Weather Impact Live with Brad Panovich is sponsored by Moisture Lock, crawl space, basement, and foundation repair experts serving the Carolinas since 1988.
Tired of all this rain? Does your yard look like a swamp after it rains? Hi, I'm Greg Doggett with Moisture Lock, Charlotte's premier waterproofing and foundation repair company. The longer water sits, the softer soil will become. This can cause foundation issues. If you're having drainage issues, contact Moisture Lock. We'll get the water away from your home and out of your yard.
Moisture Lock, stabilize, enhance, protect.
Tim Buckley, welcome back to Live Weather Impact.
Welcome.
How was your weekend?
I'm welcoming
in Wilmington?
you to your own show.
Thank you. I was here yesterday.
Pretty good.
Good. How was the weather?
Well, you'll be here back again with me tomorrow.
I'm so excited.
The weather was good enough. We had a thunderstorm for about 90 minutes on Saturday. That really counted, mostly like 2 to 3:30-ish, so kind of a sun break. But other than that, it was fine. Not that bad. So
great to hear.
Overall, the beaches were in good shape this weekend. Yes.
We love to hear it.
No hurricanes.
Yeah. Well, we have a different kind of hurricane this week. Ba-da-ba. Actually, I probably shouldn't do that tune.
We hope so.
It's trademarked or copyrighted. But yes, this is a live picture here from Raleigh. The Hurricanes have game 1 of the Stanley Cup Finals. We did have on our show, Tim, that like the cheapest tickets were $1,000 because the classic people buying them and trying to resell them. So very sad that it seems like for the normal person, maybe not able to afford to go, but still cheering for them nonetheless. And at least the weather's nice.
I heard that they've been charging like $75 for parking too. Have you heard about this? It's been really expensive to go to the playoffs. So whatever it is in the regular season, it's just like amplifying. The price is just all going up. So got to be a real serious fan with some serious
I was just going to say, I don't really know that much about Raleigh or like traffic there, but that's one thing that I really do love about Charlotte is how, you know, the public transit, like the light rail and stuff, you know, goes right to Uptown. So as long as you know somewhere you can park, James knows, we take the light rail together before.
I just park at Brittany's place.
Exactly. Just take the light rail. But, you know, it's so convenient because you don't have to worry about that, right? Like my aunt and uncle will come in from out of town because both of their kids went to Davidson, you know, which is north side of Mecklenburg County, and they always would comment on that. They'd be like, oh my gosh, we got to drive to Uptown and the parking's $50 or whatever, you know, if their team was playing in something. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. I don't really know. I just take the light rail.
There you go. It's a transit show today. We're advocating for trains and transit.
Does Greensboro have
all sorts
good
of other
transit?
ways to get around? No, I wouldn't say that.
Thank you for your honesty.
We have cars.
We have cars.
Buses. We have a free hopper trolley, they call it, that you can take around town. So that's something nice. You can take Amtrak to Charlotte if you want to get to the Panther game, and that's not a bad way to go.
That's good. You know what you should do is you should take it to Charlotte to come hang out with me, James, and Brad.
Yes.
How about that?
Sounds good. There we go. We can go.
If you want to come hang out with us, we'll come up with something fun to do. We'll get Becca to do the show, and
Weather Team Lunch.
Alex can do the show, and we can go hang out and do something. All right, let's get into it.
They're going to make us do something weather-related now. Yes.
Yeah, we should probably do this, but it's fine. We talked transit, we talked the hurricanes in Raleigh. Let's talk a different type of hurricane. Yesterday was June 1st, first day of hurricane season. We have talked a lot, you know, about the El Niño expected to, you know, come this year and how that can lessen the amount of storms that we've seen. But we know it only really takes one storm to make a bad season. And so if you are somewhere in the Carolinas, at some point, you yourself, a friend, a family member, has probably had Duke Energy. And as they normally do as they get ready for hurricane season, is they get their command center together. You know, they try to track new technology to see how it can help if you were to potentially lose power. And so we actually sent our WCNC Walker Lawson there yesterday, also one of our fill-in forecasters, shout out Walker, to talk to Duke about what's changing this year. So let's take a look.
We're here inside Duke Energy's Charlotte Distribution Center, where they track power outages and dispatch crews. But they also monitor self-healing technology to help restore power faster. And with this season's hurricane season starting today, they say that they are prepared.
This is one of the most advanced facilities in Duke Energy's system.
Around-the-clock teams monitor the grid from here, including Carlos Morales, who tracks outages as they happen and helps direct crews to trouble spots. He says self-healing technology is changing the game.
It used to be a technician had to, put their hands or tools on every device that we needed operated, and now a lot of it we can do it from here remotely. So instead of taking hour and a half between getting a crew on site and getting everything set up, sometimes we can have more customers restored within 45 minutes or less.
Duke Energy also spends all year preparing.
But we're also strengthening the electric grid, making it stronger and more resistant prevent outages for the future. So we've made about 150,000 pole upgrades across the Carolinas over the last 5 to 6 years. 17,000 wood pole to steel pole transmission upgrades. These are stronger poles that can withstand those high winds. And we've trimmed more than 60,000 miles of power lines.
As a reminder, Duke Energy says have a plan in place now for how you would respond if you lost power for an extended period of time. Reporting in Charlotte, Walker Lawson, WCNC Charlotte.
Tim, I feel like after getting the ice and the snow this past year, even though it's a different kind of preparation, people in the Carolinas who maybe hadn't lived here in a while, to see something like that, kind of got that next taste of like needing water, needing food, because of course we know people were not advised to drive, during either of those events.
If you remember, of course we all remember this, how bad the ice storm could have been. And it wasn't quite that level, but it could have been. We were basically preparing for it like it were a hurricane or like it were a cold hurricane, so to speak. That's kind of what they ended up getting in Nashville, and only in the sense that widespread power outages, they can last a long time. You've got to kind of be prepared to fend for yourself for a while, and that's what people were kind of doing. I'm glad it didn't happen that way for us, but as we've seen in the big storms that can happen, whether it be Helene or the more traditional ones at the coast, if you get hit the hardest, you can be without power for 3, 4, 5 days, or let alone 1 to 2 weeks in some cases.
Yeah, honestly, that's a great point. Also, I think too, to 2025, so many people feel like we didn't get anything during hurricane season, but you guys in Greensboro and those areas east were kind of like the rarities that you got a lot of really significant localized flooding from Chantal. So it kind of just like shows you that it doesn't have to be a hurricane, and it can be a really localized area that's very badly impacted.
And a lot of times, one of the things that I like about hurricanes the best is however bad they're going to be, usually we can give you plenty of warning because they do not sneak up on you. Chantal was the exception to that. It spun up really quickly, and it kind of moved in here with only like a day and a half of notice. And when it happened, we weren't really expecting the level of impact, but it dropped that 9, 10, 12 inches of rain on a couple county swath from Pinehurst up through Chapel Hill, and it was just the worst storm these people have seen in years. And really, we weren't expecting it. So it's always good to be on guard. I do have this graphic up. I think it's nice we're getting awareness now, but, hurricane season is far from a straight line. So if you're someone that has storm anxiety, if you're someone who does get nervous about these things, we get that, certainly. This is a very slow ramp up usually. Storms can happen now, but more traditionally, we're really watching August, September into October as being those bigger months for hurricane season. That's when the vast majority of the activity happens. So while we could get something between now and July, it's more likely that things get busy for us in the middle of the year. The thing that's different about this year, though, Brittany, and we'll hear more about this, is we're expecting this big El Niño, and typically it can make it harder for those hurricanes to form. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, you also make a good point about Chantal being so quick. It was also a holiday weekend, and I do sometimes think holiday weekend, like people kind of check out and they, aren't as aware of what's going on. So with such a quick spin up, it's like if you were out of town starting Thursday and you weren't paying attention to the forecast, by Sunday, which was the big rain day, now we got a tropical storm. Like Tim mentioned, the El Niño, we do have some sound here from the World Meteorological Organization talking about the El Niño event that we're expecting to form later on this summer. So they're going to talk more about that. And then Tim and I will be on the other side to talk perspective here.
In some regions, it is likely we will see heavy rainfall and floods. In others, drought conditions. In others, increased or reduced extreme heat or tropical cyclone activity. We can also expect an increased risk of extreme heat with higher temperatures and shifting precipitation patterns, adding further stress on human health, ecosystems, agriculture, and energy systems.
I know that was kind of long, and she does have a thick accent, so I just want to kind of break it down for you. So we've talked about a lot about El Niño here. Warmer than normal ocean waters in the Pacific. That actually means that here in the Atlantic Basin, we typically see higher wind shear and less storms. That doesn't mean that the storms themselves aren't still strong. But she also makes a really good point about some of the climate conditions that this can cause, which is heavier rainfall events, just because there's more moisture in the atmosphere because of all the warmth in the Pacific. And then also, because there will be some areas that are under drought, that also means that there's other areas, right, with excessive rainfall. I said that backwards. Because there's areas with excessive rainfall, that also means typically there's areas with excessive drought conditions. And then there will be parts, especially of Europe, it looks like, that are going to get some extreme heat. So certainly something we'll be watching. I think it is important to note, at least, Tim, that El Niño and La Niña, two different climate patterns, essentially they mean the opposite, depending on what part of the globe you're looking at. But these are overall patterns. That means like over an X amount of time we could be warmer than normal or drier than normal. That doesn't mean like you won't have a wet stretch or a cold stretch. It's like an overall trend. It's not every single day.
And it's not the only factor to a seasonal forecast or something like that, right? Like for hurricane season, for example, it's a huge factor. But you also have the water temperatures, which look to be near average or a little above average. So there are plenty of other things, and we talked to Robbie Berg with the Hurricane Center a couple weeks ago about this. There are other things that they look at. But the thing that makes this year different is that there's such a broad consensus that this El Niño is not just going to be marginal or a weak one, it might be one of the strongest ones on record. So those impacts to the global climate are probably going to be more than usual. The bigger ones in history get a lot of headlines for bringing a ton of rainfall to California, places like that. We can get a lot of rainfall in the wintertime in an El Niño. That'll be something to watch for if it's still around by that point in time. But also, it might just make things really hostile for hurricane development. And while that's a good thing, it could also mean that our drought has more staying power because, well, then you don't get the tropical rainfall either. So there are just lots of things to talk about, lots of things to dive into, Brittany, that kind of give mixed signals, right? Depending on where you are and what you're looking for.
Yeah, it's like everything's fighting against itself, right, when like you're in years like this. I also do think just in general, it's one of the things that we talk about all the time, Tim, you, me, and Brad, but getting the breakdown, I guess, between like weather and climate, making sure that we're keeping those separate, knowing that like weather is what's happening right now versus climate being the overall trend. We don't want to say like, oh, we're in an El Niño, that means less hurricanes, and then boom, nobody's paying attention to any hurricane we talk about. We use the climate patterns to know like a broad idea of what to expect. But that doesn't mean that we're not still tracking those changes day by day. Because if we trusted the fact that La Niña winter was going to be drier than normal and warmer than normal, then we wouldn't have been looking at the ice storm, or the big snowstorm. So it's like that was still true. It still technically was a dry and warm winter, but that doesn't mean that we didn't see the biggest snowstorm in 20 years in Charlotte, because that was just a tiny piece of the pie of a 90-day period.
Absolutely right. That's the perfect way to put it. Yep. Not every day is going to be the same. That's just the way it is. But the overall trend is probably going to be fewer big storms. I'm curious that we'll see. I think James has this, but not to pivot too much. There was this crazy hailstorm in Colorado yesterday, and I saw a little bit about this on social media. I think we have some more video. This is Aurora, Colorado. Look at what they're dealing with. There's an icy component to this. He's wading knee deep in floodwaters. And so imagine this. It's one thing that, have a storm that's causing flooding. Unfortunately, this person looks to have driven into the floodwaters. Whatever the case may be, they're getting rescued here. But look at the amount of ice that's floating on this. I mean, this is like a big gulp in real form. Like you have all of these hailstones just on top of the floodwater. I can't say I've seen anything
I've
quite
never
like
seen
that
anything
before.
like this.
It's just stunning.
I know, the irony, too, of you saying that, and there's a gas station right there. But yeah, you're right. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, very thankful that the officers were there.
Yeah, and so it looks like a wintry scene. It's not. Of course, hail is something that does form in spring or summer thunderstorms. You've got to have a storm cloud that's tall enough to be way above the freezing level and enough friction to kind of make these hailstones happen. And the ice gets bigger and then it falls out of the cloud. And it can happen a little bit more dramatically out west than it can in the Carolinas. Colorado can have some famously weird weather. But this is weird stuff. Sure. And I know it hit a lot of the Denver populated areas right in the city. So a lot of people saw this.
Yeah, one of my best friends lives there, and every single time she posts about, like, it's snowing one day and it's 70 degrees the next day, I'm like, wow. Well, one, I'm glad to live in the Carolinas because I love living here, but also, wow. Their forecasters deserve all the praise. Tim, you wanted to talk a little bit really quick before we go about an interesting sight to see in the night sky. Did you want to talk about the conjunction really quick? We can always talk about it, too, tomorrow again. But you said you made a graphic, so I want you to show off your hard work.
It was very hard. Took me at least 2 minutes here to put this together tonight.
I mean, 2 minutes
I do think
is 2
this is something
minutes.
that people tend to enjoy this. So whether you're a space geek or not, I always get a big response from people when we talk about things in the sky that you can see, because it's something you can show your kids. So if they're up tonight, around 9 to 9:30 is when you'd want to start looking. Look for wherever the sun just set. That's your west, and that should be where you're seeing these popping up. But you're going to have Jupiter and Venus. Super easy to see. They'll be the two brightest dots in the sky, and they'll be fairly close to one another tonight. As I understand it, the cool thing about this, though, is as you go day by day throughout the week, especially by the weekend, they're going to be almost touching. And so that's called a conjunction of two planets. I think the best that it'll be is by the 7th, which is on Sunday. But every night until then, you're going to be able to get a cool view of it. So it's always fun to look up in the sky and say, hey, did you know that's Jupiter? That's Venus? That's Mercury? Whatever. Pretty easy to do this week.
Yeah, love that. Especially, too, because it seems like with our weather drying out a bit, we shouldn't be as concerned about, big clouds, or those, like, training thunderstorms like last weekend, which would have impacted if you were trying to see all those cool things.
Yeah, tonight might be the only obstruction just because we have a couple of those storms dropping south from Virginia. Probably not bringing much rain, but they might have a little cloud cover with them. So if you don't see it tonight, don't worry. You see it tomorrow.
Yeah.
And, hey, always fun to look in the sky on a nice cozy June evening.
Yeah, it's not like the satellite launches where it's like if you didn't see it, you're done. You can't see it again for quite some time. So you'll essentially have a chance every single night. Well, right. Tim, we'll see you tomorrow on Live Weather Impact, same time, same place. I hope you have a great rest of your evening, and I hope everybody out there enjoys a very rare, cool, and dry June evening and June morning.
That's right.